Hi, thanks for tuning in today. I want to ask you, do you have, are you Orthodox? And by Orthodox, I don't mean you belong to the Greek Orthodox Church or anything like that. Actually, what I mean by that term is, do you follow or do you have the teachings of the apostles and of the scriptures? And Paul was very adamant, particularly in one book, about orthodoxy. That is, having right teaching. And in the book of Galatians, Paul is adamant that if anyone preaches some other gospel, let him be accursed. And so, but as I was reading the book of Galatians in Greek, one particular word really stuck out to me, a particular Greek word that really influenced me how I think about this orthodoxy. And I want to share that with you right now. So again, the setting in the book of Galatians in chapter 1, Paul is very concerned about getting the gospel right. He said, if we or an angel from heaven preach unto you any other gospel, he says, let them be accursed. But then as he moves into chapter 2, he begins to narrate an event in which he confronted Peter. And I'll just give you kind of a rough translation. He said, but when Peter came into Antioch, he said that he withstood him to his face because he was to be condemned or blameworthy. For before, he goes on and talks about how before he was eating with the Gentiles, but when these men had come, he withdrew and separated himself, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with this sort of hypocrisy. And but then in 2:14, but when I saw that not and then he uses this word, orthopodusi, or orthopodusin, depending on what version of the Greek New Testament you're using. That's an interesting word, and it's usually translated something like walking uprightly, which is certainly a good way to translate that. But it's interesting that you have these two words here. You have ortho, which is the same sort of word prefix that you find in orthodoxy. Ortho, meaning right or straight. So if you want to think about an orthodontist, he makes your teeth straight. This ortho, and it's from this other word, ortho and pous, which means foot. So right foot. Or I like the way that Timothy Keller, he talks about this, and he was the first one to bring this to my attention. But when I was actually reading it in Greek for myself, it stood out to me. And he actually translated this. I like the way he translated it as right walking. Now, I'm not a huge Timothy Keller fan, but this one particular point I thought was just really kind of helped me conceptualize this. So in Galatians, Paul is very much concerned about getting the gospel right, getting the truth of the gospel right. But see, this influences, this right teaching has practical implications. Because for Paul, getting the gospel right influences whether you eat with Gentiles or not. So your orthodoxy influences your, or right doctrine, orthodoxy, right doctrine will influence your ortho walking, how you walk. And so there's a lot of things out there that we want to get right. We want as much truth as we can possibly get. But there's particular truths that really influence how we walk. But we also want to remember that in getting truth, the truth, we don't just get truth for its own sake, although the truth is powerful. I mean, the truth sets us free. But the truth also influences how we walk. And importantly, it influences how we treat other people. And I would say a gospel that has no impact upon how you live your life or how you walk, an orthodoxy that has no power, an orthodoxy that we hold up as great truth that is powerless to change our lives in such a way that it influences how we treat other people, which was the issue here in Galatians 2. Peter was not walking uprightly. He was not ortho walking, because when he was eating with the Gentiles, but when the Jews came, he withdrew and separated himself. And Paul saw that the gospel was at stake. And so what I think about Galatians, one of the things I really think about is the gospel trumps human personalities. He said, though we or an angel from heaven preach unto you any other gospel, let him be accursed. Even if an apostle acts in such a way that's contrary to the gospel trumps even the influence of apostles. The gospel truth has that intrinsic power to it, and it definitely influences the way we walk. So I just wanted to share that with you. Like I said, I'm sharing the things that I'm learning as I'm reading the Greek New Testament. If you get value from any of the reviews I do or anything that you're interested in as far as biblical languages or theology, I kind of want to broaden out this channel and kind of touch some other issues as we go along. If those things interest you, I'd encourage you to hit the subscribe button. You can hit the thumbs up button, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks.